So one thing I've noticed over the years is that the fragmentation of the laboring body, because its cares and concerns have been kind of distributed along many different realms. My last work was a night work in call centers in India, and what I realized that the reason I did not find any resistance against night work in call centers is because there are three different notions of well-being that have emerged over the years. One is economic well-being, and in that case, the choice to work at night is actually really some economic well-being because you have a job and you have a salary. At the same time, in the realm of social good and social well-being, you do lose the whole daytime social life, and you're cut off from the majority of the world in a serious way. And then you have biological well-being. And if you look at chronobiologists and biological understandings, the night work definitely reduces biological well-being, and it's been related to various kinds of cancers, a bunch of very different ailments that emerge because the laboring body has been worked to. The nocturnal body has been, diurnal body has been made to work at night. It has become nocturnal labor. So the basic problem for worker solidarity in the world today is how to go past this fragmentation and to allow a certain kind of identity of consciousness to emerge. And globalization in that sense makes it even more difficult because you can protest to one state at a time, one government at a time. There is no transnational body of governance against which you can rally. So in some ways, the Marxist notion of the cry for the workers of the world to unite is still quite relevant because the welfare state compromise of the middle of the 20th century, which lasted for decades and worked rather well and provided some sort of security against precarious forms of labor that were emerging in the earlier 20th century. But now that compromise is declining, and as we know, that most of the corporations can move their revenue around the world. They earn their revenue around the world from different parts of the world, and they can park their money in places like Ireland or low-taxing states. So the question that emerges, where do you fight when revenue can be moved around? And the welfare state is starved of this revenue, and as in the US, we know the government has been trying to corporations like Apple or Google to move some of the money back into the US, and nothing has happened in that, and they have miserably failed on that front. So the question for workers is, and the basic income network that's emerging, the right to basic income, could be a global movement, and it could be organized something around quite like Occupy movement. Occupy movement was a kind of anarchist movement. It did not have any demand on or an appeal to a particular state, because I think organizers knew fully well that there is no particular one single state that can solve the problem. It's the problem of this taxation, the lack of taxation money through which the state used to fund its welfare programs. So the question that emerged in how this discourse, and so first it has to come out in terms of movement and discourse, and the change of discourse can change certain practices, whether corporate practices or state practices, and then we can see probably the possibility of some sort of interstate agreement at the United Nations level that allows a new kind of welfare state compromise to emerge. Without that kind of institutional makeup or institutional setting, I do not, as a scholar, see any kind of worker solidarity possible at the global level.